Okay, so get this, listeners. There's this review game. It's called Knowledge Showdown. And apparently it's like super popular with teachers. Or and it really clicks with students,
Yeah.
way more than like the usual review stuff. So we thought, hey, let's do a deep dive into this thing. We've got articles, research, the whole shebang. Ready to break it down?
I'm ready.
Okay, cool. So from what I've been seeing, this Knowledge Showdown thing, it seems to be tapping into some really important learning principles. Things that like traditional classrooms kind of miss sometimes.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's like active recall, right? When students, they have to pull information from their memory. And not just that, but also cognitive processing. That mental work of making connections and actually understanding concepts.
So it's not just like sitting there and listening to a lecture or rereading notes over and over.
Nope, not at all. Knowledge Showdown, it's like flipping the script. The students, they're in the driver's seat now,
Yep.
actively engaged, retrieving information, applying it, and that's what makes it stick. In fact, one of the articles we have, it mentions a study, they found that students who use game-based review, like Knowledge Showdown, they remembered way more information compared to those who just use the old-school methods.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. And I bet the game element, it plays a big part in keeping the students motivated.
Right. Oh, absolutely. It's fun, sure, but
Right.
it's more than that. The competition, the research says, it triggers this release of dopamine, that neurotransmitter linked to pleasure and rewards. So it creates this positive feedback loop. Students are more likely to stay engaged and motivated to learn.
So, like, it turns review into a game show. I can see why the students love it.
Yeah, and the sources we've looked at, they suggest that this type of game-based learning, it can actually reduce anxiety around tests, because it feels more like a game than an exam. The students, they're more relaxed, they're willing to take risks, and that ultimately leads to deeper learning.
Okay, so we've got active recall, cognitive processing, the whole motivation thing going on. Anything else that makes this game so effective?
Well, the sources, they emphasize immediate feedback. That's a key part of Knowledge Showdown. Students get instant feedback on their answers, so they can correct mistakes and solidify their understanding right then and there.
Yeah, it makes sense, like having a built-in tutor always there to guide you.
Exactly, and this constant feedback loop, it helps students figure out their strengths and weaknesses, which is, essential for targeted learning.
Now, you mentioned competition, right? But isn't that sometimes seen as, well, kind of a bad thing in education?
It's a good point. And it's something the sources address directly. Cutthroat competition, that can be detrimental for sure, but healthy competition, when it's structured the right way, it can be a powerful motivator for learning. And that's what Knowledge Showdown's all about. It's fun, it's supportive, students can challenge themselves and each other without feeling like, too much pressure.
So more like friendly rivalry, not a win-at-all-costs thing.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the research actually suggests that this type of friendly competition, it can foster camaraderie, leading to a more positive and collaborative learning environment. There was this one study, students who played game-based review, they reported feeling more connected to their classmates and more motivated to help each other succeed.
That's fantastic. So it sounds like Knowledge Showdown, it's not just effective for boosting retention, it's also creating a more positive classroom culture.
Absolutely. And there's another aspect of the game that adds to that positive dynamic. Teamwork.
You know what's really cool about this Knowledge Showdown game? The way it seems to work for, like, all types of learners. At least that's what I'm getting from all this research we've been looking at.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, that's one of its biggest strengths for sure.
Yeah.
From what we've seen, it really does engage students with different learning styles. Like traditional methods, they often favor just one type. But Knowledge Showdown, it kind of levels the playing field. It brings in elements that appeal to, visual, auditory, and even kinesthetic learners.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So can you give us some examples? Like, how does it actually do that?
Okay, well, let's start with visual learners. They're the ones who really thrive on seeing information presented in a clear, organized way, right? So with Knowledge Showdown, you often have these like colorful game boards, different categories, point values, all laid out there. And this visual representation, it really helps them organize the information in their minds, helps them make those connections.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense for the visual learners. But what about the auditory learners? How does it engage them?
Well, auditory learners are all about hearing and discussing information. So Knowledge Showdown, it incorporates a lot of verbal interaction. The teams, they discuss possible answers, they debate strategies, they explain their reasoning out loud. This constant back and forth, it helps them process and remember the information better.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've got visual, we've got auditory, but what about the kinesthetic learners? The ones who really got to move around and do things to learn best.
Oh, don't worry, Knowledge Showdown's got them covered too. There's often physical actions involved, like writing down answers, buzzing in first to answer a question, sometimes even moving game pieces around a board. This physical activity helps those kinesthetic learners stay focused, engaged, keeps them actively involved in the whole learning process.
Wow, so it really does have something for everyone. No wonder it's been such a big hit in classrooms.
Exactly. It creates this inclusive environment where everyone feels valued, supported, and that just makes for a more positive, enriching experience for everybody in the classroom.
Absolutely. Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about the content of the game itself. You mentioned that teachers can customize Knowledge Showdown to fit any subject. But how exactly does that work?
Well, that's where the versatility really shines. I mean, one of the sources we have, it's this teacher's guide, and it's full of creative examples. Like, it shows how a history teacher could use categories like ancient civilizations, historical figures, important battles, that kind of thing. And then a math teacher, they might go for categories like algebra, geometry, or even word problems.
So basically, the possibilities are pretty much endless.
Pretty much, yeah.
But wouldn't coming up with all those questions and categories take forever? Like, teachers are already so busy.
Yeah, that's a valid concern. But the good news is, Knowledge Showdown is designed to be teacher-friendly. It often comes with pre-made question sets for different subjects. And there are tons of online resources where teachers can, share and download questions that other teachers have made.
Oh, okay, so that's a huge time saver. And speaking of technology, one of the things that really impressed me from the research is how well Knowledge Showdown integrates with tech tools.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like using platforms like Quizzes or Kahoots, that takes it to a whole new level. You can create interactive games with multimedia, colorful graphics, sound effects, even video clips sometimes.
Wow, so it's like bringing a high-tech game show right into the classroom.
Exactly. And the students, they absolutely love it. Plus, it's not just about making the game more fun. These platforms, they offer a bunch of practical benefits for teachers too. Like they can automatically track students' scores, they can identify areas where students are struggling, they can even personalize the game based on individual learning needs.
That's incredible. It sounds like these platforms are really powerful tools for teachers. But what about accessibility? Can all schools and students even use these online resources?
That's a good question. And the good news is, a lot of these platforms, they have free versions, basic features. So that makes them accessible to a wider range of schools and educators. And even the paid versions, they're often pretty affordable, especially when you consider the value they bring to the classroom.
That's great to hear. So it sounds like Knowledge Showdown, it's really managed to hit that sweet spot, engaging gameplay, educational value, and it's accessible. But there's one more thing I want to touch on: teamwork. From what I've read, this game, it seems to be a real champion when it comes to fostering collaboration.
Oh, you're absolutely spot on about that. It's kind of like you wouldn't expect it, right? A competitive game that actually promotes teamwork.
Yeah, it's pretty cool how it does that. From everything I've been reading, it's not about individual students, trying to be the star of the show. It's more like everyone working together, each person bringing their own strengths and knowledge to the table.
Exactly, and that's a big point the research makes. The game itself, just the way it's structured, it naturally encourages collaboration. You've got teams working together, brainstorming answers, figuring out the best strategy, and it's celebrating when they get a tough question, right?
Yeah, like a little mini lesson in how to collaborate effectively.
Exactly. And these skills, communication, critical thinking, problem solving, they're not just for the classroom, right? Those are essential skills for pretty much everything in life.
Absolutely. It's like they're getting a head start on those crucial life skills, all while having fun and learning at the same time.
Right. And what's also interesting is how this teamwork leads to a sense of shared accomplishment. Like when a team wins in Knowledge Showdown, it's not just one person who gets the credit, it's the whole team. And that really strengthens their bond and boosts morale.
And I bet that shared success contributes to a more positive and supportive classroom overall.
Oh, definitely. It's not about that cutthroat competition. It's about helping and supporting each other, celebrating each other's strengths, and learning from each other's mistakes.
Okay, before we wrap things up, I want to go back to something we talked about earlier: assessment. A lot of these sources, they're saying Knowledge Showdown isn't just a game. It's also a really effective tool for teachers to see how well students are understanding the material.
Yeah, for sure. And what's cool is that the game format makes it less stressful for students. It's not like a big test where they're all nervous and have to do everything on their own. It's more relaxed, more enjoyable. They can show what they know without feeling overwhelmed.
So it takes the pressure off. But how does that actually work? How can teachers use Knowledge Showdown for assessment?
Well, one article I read described how a teacher uses it for informal assessment. She'll play around with her class and just watch how they're doing, what questions they answer easily, which ones they struggle with. It gives her a really good idea of how well they understand the material.
Oh, I see, like a real-time snapshot of their knowledge. And then she can use that to adjust her teaching.
Exactly. She can plan her lessons based on what she sees, focus on areas where they need more help, give extra challenges to those who are already doing well.
So it's not just about seeing what they know, it's about using that information to help them learn even more.
Yeah, that's the key. And because the game is so fun and engaging, students are more likely to participate. They're not just sitting there passively. They're actively thinking and using what they've learned.
Awesome. Well, there you have it. We've covered a lot about the Knowledge Showdown game. From boosting retention and working for different types of learners, to encouraging teamwork and making assessment more engaging and less stressful.
It's really amazing to see how a game can have such a big impact on learning. It shows that sometimes the best way to learn is by having fun, connecting with others, and playing.
That's what makes this whole deep dive so exciting, right? It opens up all these possibilities for making learning more engaging and effective. And yeah, maybe even more enjoyable for students of all ages.
I think so too. And as we wrap up, it makes me wonder, if a game like Knowledge Showdown could be this effective, what other creative ways can we use games and play to make education even better? It's definitely something worth thinking about.
Absolutely. And we hope you'll keep exploring this world of game-based learning too. You never know, you might come up with the next big idea that transforms how we learn and teach. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Knowledge Showdown game.